Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. And it's a beautiful morning here, and I wanted to bring you to this location. It's a lake. Now, I grew up only about 2 kilometers down the road from here, so this is a very familiar location for me, but I haven't really shot a whole lot of nightscapes here. But my wife and I walk around this lake quite frequently, and so on one of those walks I discovered a little nook and cranny that I hadn't really noticed in the past. And today I want to take you there. We'll have a look at that, and I'll just show you a couple of nightscapes that I took on that adventure. It was only last week, so it's fairly recent. So anyway, I'll just show you around. Let's go. Well, it's nice just to get out here and relax. It's quite a warm day today, the sun's shining, and walking around this lake brings a lot of memories back for me. My dad used to work with the State Rivers and Water Supply Commission, so of course he would come here a lot. They'd clean the channels out, and of course my dad was a very keen fisherman, so he'd be throwing a line in here. At the time, this lake was closed to the public because it was a water supply for the town of Bendigo, and yeah, but now it's open, walking tracks, seats and chairs for people to relax, picnic areas and all sorts of things like that. You know, this is close to town, as I mentioned before, and it's about a Bortle 4 sky rating, so it's not really dark sky location here. But, you know, it's still worthwhile coming out here and seeing what we can get as far as nightscapes are concerned. Now, I mentioned to you before that I was on my way to a spot that I discovered, which is down the other side of this wall here, and there's a fair walk to it. But on the way there, the other night when I was here, I was quite aware that the Milky Way core was up here in the sky. Now, this is facing towards the southwest here, and I've shot panoramas here before of the Milky Way, and I thought, well, let's give it a go. What was happening is that the moon, it was only a very thin crescent moon, was just down on the top of those trees on the horizon over there. There was also a little bit of scattered cloud in the sky, quite low down, and I thought that looked pretty good. There was just that little faint glow from the moon setting. So I shot a panorama here, and to be honest, it was just quite random really, but I wanted to see. I was here and I thought, well, let's give it a go, because the sky was reasonably bright because it was, as I said, it's a Bortle 4 sky, and also there was a bit of moonlight. But I was really happy with that shot. It was a twin row panorama, so I shot about, I think it was about 16 shots, 8 in the bottom, 8 on the top. I shot in portrait orientation with the camera. It was a Nikon Z6 with the 20mm f1.8. And I'll tell you what, you cannot beat a good Lake Milky Way panorama. Now, it's always very interesting when you see panoramas shot at a location like this, because you've got this straight line here of the dam wall with this track along here, the water out there. But when you see the final pano stretched out, this straight line here becomes curved, and it ends up going in both directions. And that's what we've seen with this shot here. It's just the way that you can't fit a 3D space into a 2D picture, I suppose. But yeah, I always find that quite amusing. So for this particular panorama, I didn't put any light painting. There was nothing much in the way of light in the sky. So I've just boosted the shadows in post-production in Lightroom to get this track here to show out. And I think it worked pretty well in this case. Now, of course, the lake is very interesting and I just love walking around the tracks and so forth here. But my main target was just a little bit further up here and a much more concealed object, something that you'd probably walk past, and in fact I have walked past hundreds of times in the past. But you know, sometimes it just takes one time to stop and have a bit closer look. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's go. Well, you probably can't see too much just yet, but down there is our target. Now, around this lake, there's a whole lot of channels that run into it that feed the water, and I think they're pretty old, most of them. And currently at this time of the year, they're dry, there's nothing in them. Obviously when it floods, there's a lot of water runs through here, but there's some channel locks and gates down there that caught my eye. Now, as I said, I've walked past these tracks hundreds of times and never really taken a lot of notice, maybe because of the different time of year, I don't know what it was, but just down there, it's pretty old, beautiful old brickwork and metalwork, which is what attracted me to it in the first place. So, it's going to take you down and show you a little bit closer view now. All right, well here we are, and you can see this gorgeous old structure. I don't know how old it is, but I like the look of it. Now, when I go scouting for locations, and I've talked to you a lot about this before, I'm always looking for something that's a little bit different. And in this case, I like the arches down here. You'll see them in a minute, where the water flows through and there's gates. And they use these devices here to obviously put a big spanner on there and open them up. And they've got cogs and wheels and everything like that. And of course I like this sort of thing because it looks like something that would light up well, especially with all the brick. There's shrubs and there's old bits of wood and trees and all sorts of rubbish down there. But you know, my motto is to make something that's reasonably ugly look attractive under the light of the stars and a little bit of light painting. Now, speaking of the stars, there's not much room above this to get the Milky Way. Now, the Milky Way was up there, but there's a fair few trees. So what I'll do, I'll take you down to the bottom there where I composed this shot, and I'll run you through how I went about doing that. Now, I think you can immediately see some of the difficulties that I faced at this location. It's rugged, hard to get down here, and this thing's really wide. Now, I was using my 20mm lens. In fact, that's the only lens I had with me at the time. So at 20mm, I can't get everything in, or I wasn't happy with the composition. Now, I tried a number of different compositions in different places just around this little gully here. And I found it really hard to get both of these channel locks in. And I think what happens, as you know, with wide angle lenses, you'll get this curvature on the edges of the frame. And of course these walls here, rather than looking straight, end up looking bent and curved. And I don't like that. So I was trying to look for a composition that I could alleviate that curvature and still get the character of this structure here. So in the end, I found myself hard up against this tree here. And because I was over on an angle like this, I tended to put my camera into portrait orientation. You know, I was able to get some of the sky up there, which was my aim, of course, but it wasn't brilliant. And, you know, I could have probably tried to get a better composition, but this tree was actually in the way because I wanted to go back further. Couldn't get further behind the tree, so I had to just get right up against the tree. But in the end, I made do with what I had. Ow. Well, you wouldn't read about it. I'm now getting attacked by mosquitoes. Well, that's what you get for coming down to a place like this, I suppose. But anyway, look, these are the things that we face in our adventure and our quest for that nightscape image. Boy. Now, it was quite a challenge to light all of this area. But I love the edge of bricks. So if you look at this brickwork here, that's part of the attraction for me. I love to find this sort of line coming into my shot. So from the camera angle over there, this was quite prominent. In fact, it's the closest part to the camera. So the closest part to the camera is always going to look the largest in the frame, whereas the structure back here, even though it's further back, it is larger, so proportionally it looks okay. So I spent quite a bit of time lighting this, all of this brickwork and all of these gates and the structure and everything else. Now I had to be very careful. Now one of my big things, and you already know this from my previous videos, is that I won't light from the camera angle. So I had to get around on angles. And as you can see, it's not the most easy terrain to negotiate, especially in the middle of the night, and especially with mosquitoes everywhere. So of course you can see, if you look back down this direction, this is what I was having to negotiate. So there's a bit of a drop off there, lots of long grass, sticks and shrubs everywhere down here. So yeah, it took a fair while to get around to light paint all of this. And then of course I've got to climb up to the top, because when I was up the top there, I was lighting on a downward angle. So around the top of this area here, I was lighting downwards. And I like to do that, especially with structures with brick and so forth. If I've got the option of getting above, then I like to get above and light down. It casts that beam of light across the brick or stonework or whatever it is that you might be trying to take shots of. And yeah, it took a while. It took a long while, but I was happy with how that one went. I think the other thing is, what happened was, and this was frustrating as well, mozzies, was the cloud cover started to roll in, and I could see it happening. And I was there trying to get my composition worked out, and I could see the clouds coming in, and that is also a frustration I had to deal with. Now you can see how much sky there was. There's not a whole lot back there, and that's what I had to work with here. But of course the main thing I wanted to capture was all of this brickwork down here and the structure. Of course there's trees there in the sky in the background, but you know, I've learned over the years not to worry too much about trees. I used to worry about trees all the time, and because of that I would miss out on so many shots. So now if there's a few trees like that, well, so be it. I'll just try and work them into the framing of the shot. And of course the Milky Way was right up there above these trees, coming down. It was setting down quite quickly, so I had to be pretty quick, work around up here, lighting above all of these structures, getting my torch in amongst these brickwork and everything else. But in the end, I think it came up pretty well. Well, you know what? You just never know what else you can find when you're exploring in places like this. As I said, I've been here dozens, possibly hundreds of times in the past, and I'd never bothered to shoot at this location. And I think that's really important to consider. The things that we often disregard, I suppose, because we think for some reason or another they're not going to make a good nightscape subject. Well, this is not my best image that I've ever taken. I really realise that, but hey, it's not too bad, and it's an adventure getting out here shooting this type of stuff. And I'll tell you what, we need to challenge ourselves, and this is certainly a challenge. And so in finishing this video, I'd like to both inspire and challenge you guys. Sometimes we can't find the epic locations, no matter how hard we try. We might live in a location that just doesn't have such things, and that's pretty much what it is here. But sometimes you've just got to go and try and find whatever it is that you can make an image out of. And that's what I've tried to do in this episode. So I'll look forward to seeing you next time. If you'd like to comment down below, always appreciate that. Give us a like and a subscribe if you feel led to do that. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you next week. I've got another adventure out under the stars to share with you. So have a great week. I'll see you then.